Good morning. Today is September 22nd, and so I'm recording this video a few hours before class. I would like to do an in-class assignment on impact of engineering today. Just as a review, when we talk about impact of engineering, we're talking about, for the purpose of this class anyway, we're talking about how developments or trends in engineering can impact how we live our lives, either now or far into the future. So the way I like to think about it, I like to imagine, kind of in the terms of science fiction, if current trends in engineering, or if a specific trend in engineering continues, and if the progress that is anticipated is actually achieved, how will that change how humans live their lives in, could be 25, 50, 100, or 500 years. Okay, I really leave it open. And the time scale doesn't really matter. The longer you stretch out the time scale, of course, the more amazing things that could happen. So you're free to, you have that flexibility. So what I want to do is I'm gonna watch. You just have to watch this video, and I'm going to watch and comment on several other videos on different topics, on gene editing, DNA editing, for example. 3D printing, travel to Mars, and a few others. So we'll look at those, and then there's an assignment to do, and hopefully you can watch this video and do the assignment all within the 90 minutes of class. If you could do that, that'd be great. You don't have to spend any extra time on it. During class, I will be sitting at my computer. I'll have Zoom on, and I will have the Canvas chat function on. So if you have questions about the assignment, I should respond immediately. There may be questions about the assignment. This is a new assignment. I've never tried it before. It's a little bit different than what I normally do. So, work with me if you can. But yeah, I'll be available for questions. So I'll share my screen for the rest of this video. Okay, so this is the main file that you can use for class today. We're going to look at videos, mostly videos. There's a couple articles here on these topics: gene editing, 3D printing, colonizing Mars, super longevity, uploading to computers, or autonomous vehicles. So let me just show you. We're going to look at this material here, and then here is the assignment. By the time you see this, this assignment will be live. Just keeping my options open in case I want to change anything, because it's the first time I'm doing this. Yeah. Anyway, so you'll watch the video. That's what you're doing right now. And then you choose one of the topics that we look at in the video, and then write a mini case that depicts a possible future scenario if this technology progresses as anticipated for 25 to, let's say, 100 or 500 years. One good paragraph or up to a half page is enough. Really, one good paragraph really is sufficient, but sometimes students, they need more time, they need more space to express what they can. So I'd say up to a half page is probably about the maximum. If you go over, if you're really excited about your topic and you go over it, that's fine. Just so you know, one good paragraph is enough if it's written well. So then, conclude your submission by posing a few impact-related or ethical questions, and then post your mini case as a discussion in this discussion. Here's the link, and then comment on other people, so everybody will see each other's submissions, and you can comment on each other's. Hopefully we'll have a good discussion on it. So here's an example of a mini case. This is what I mean as a mini case. So if I chose 3D printing, I may write this as my mini case. It's just a scenario that I used my imagination. I presented a scenario for 3D printing, and then the questions. This is the interesting part. How might such a development impact American society? Do you foresee a constitutional crisis? Okay, and the reason I said constitutional crisis, we haven't had a chance to look too much into the American Constitution yet, but I think you probably have enough base knowledge of it already anyway. I referred to a constitutional crisis in this case because Americans are able to manufacture anything they want, for example, drugs or guns, in their homes, and they can do it faster than law enforcement can react. As a result, existing laws regulating manufacturers' objects are totally ineffective. This will make more sense when we see the video on 3D printing, but this is the type of thing I'm looking for. It's a scenario a futuristic scenario based on your imagination. If you feel like you need to do research on it to write this, you certainly can, but it's not necessary. You can write this strictly based from your imagination, strictly based on your imagination. But this is the type of thing I'm looking for. This one's kind of short. Yours will probably be a little longer, but however it turns out. The idea is we want to have some material for discussion. So I'd like to know how your imagination works. Hopefully you'll think of things that nobody else would think of in our class, and we can talk about it. Hopefully we can all learn something from it. So that's the idea. Getting back to the material, let's start by watching this video. This is about CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing.
In a document, if we suspect we've misspelled a word, we can use the find function to highlight the error and correct it or delete it. Within our DNA, that function is taken on by a system called CRISPR-Cas9. CRISPR is short for clustered, regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats. CRISPR consists of two components, the Cas9 protein that can cut DNA and a guide RNA that can recognize the sequence of DNA to be edited. To use CRISPR-Cas9, scientists first identify the sequence of the human genome that's causing a health problem. Then they create a specific guide RNA to recognize that particular stretch of A's, T's, G's, and C's in the DNA. The guide RNA is attached to the DNA cutting enzyme Cas9, and then this complex is introduced to the target cells. It locates the target letter sequence and cuts the DNA. At that point, scientists can then edit the existing genome by either modifying, deleting, or inserting new sequences. It effectively makes CRISPR-Cas9 a cut-and-paste tool for DNA editing. In the future, scientists hope to use CRISPR-Cas9 to develop critical advances in patient care, or even cure lifelong inherited diseases.
Okay, so that's interesting stuff. So just as a review, DNA, of course, this is not my field of expertise, but DNA is the genetic code that makes all of us and every living being on Earth who we are or what we are. So our eye color, our hair color, our height, our intelligence probably to a certain extent, whatever makes us us, our physical characteristics, our intellectual characteristics, it's all determined by your DNA for the most part. There's some debate on that, of course, but and this CRISPR, what it does is it actually allows bioengineers to modify the DNA of living organisms, and that can be used as a medical treatment. It can also be used to avoid or eliminate disease, and there have been some cases of that. Here's another article this is from the Institute of Health, National Institute of Health. And here's an article on genome editing and CRISPR-Cas9. This article describes how it works. These two paragraphs I found the most interesting. Genome editing is of great interest in the prevention and treatment of human diseases. Okay, so that's the benefit. However, there are ethical concerns. There are ethical concerns when using this technology, such as CRISPR, to alter the human genome. Okay, and that has been done. So it is theoretically possible, looking far into the future, that we could have custom humans who are capable of, who don't have disease and who have special qualities and maybe have special skills, maybe adapted for certain environments, whatever. But there are ethical concerns with that. And that did happen already. This is Luxturna. This was the only company that I could find that is actually using genetic engineering already in a product and is already treating patients. And it has to do with vision. Individuals with an inherited retinal disease caused by mutations in copies of this gene, they can fix that. Coincidentally, a friend of ours actually works at this company, and she told me a little bit about it. Looks like interesting stuff. So just so you know that it's not all science fiction, this is actually happening. And then there was, in China, there was a scientist who actually did modify the genome of human babies before they were born, and he modified their genome so they would be resistant to HIV. And it was very controversial when he did it. It's still very controversial. He was widely condemned as being irresponsible and unethical. And he was, the last I saw, he was sent to prison for 3 years. Here he is. He's the scientist. He CRISPR'd, so to speak, 2 babies and made them resistant to HIV. So it turned out okay, as far as I know. Hopefully the children didn't have any bad effects, but so just to be aware that this is actually happening already. So imagine in 50 years from now how advanced it'll be. This guy, by the way, he ordered the tools from an American company, and he essentially lied to them about what the purposes were, and then he used them in humans. And then he has consequences for that. Okay, so that's gene editing. Let's take a look at 3D manufacturing. By the way, if you search in YouTube for additive manufacturing, you will get better results, I found, than if you search for 3D printing, although it's the same technology. So here's a video, it's about 4 minutes long, on what is additive. You're probably familiar already, but let's take a look for fun. Additive manufacturing.
Additive manufacturing is 3D printing. Instead of molding a part or machining it, additive manufacturing involves technology that fuses the material, maybe using a laser in the case of metal, in order to build up the part one minute layer at a time. Because the part is built up instead of being machined from the outside or molded, additive manufacturing makes it possible to produce forms that maybe wouldn't be possible to make in any other way. Possibilities include parts that have complex internal channels, parts with lattice or honeycomb structures on the inside for weight savings. Additive manufacturing makes it possible to customize a part, changing the details at the last minute because there's no dedicated mold tooling. Also, additive manufacturing can eliminate a lot of assembly work because a part that might be assembled from a lot of smaller components could be grown as a single piece instead. Additive manufacturing makes a variety of end-use production parts, including jet engine components, other aircraft parts, medical devices, surgical implants. Additive is also used to make mold components that actually improve the molding process because the cooling channels, instead of being straight drilled holes, can be grown to conform to the shape of the mold surface. Additive manufacturing as a production option is still in its infancy. The number of users and applications is growing, but still small. Over time, additive manufacturing machines will become faster, their build envelopes will get bigger, the processing of various materials will be better understood. But the thing that'll really help additive manufacturing advance is designers becoming more aware of the freedoms and possibilities that additive manufacturing brings them. The established rules of what forms are manufacturable have, in a lot of ways, now changed. When people compare additive manufacturing and machining, what they forget is how capable modern machine tools are. A part that is machined effectively today probably will still be machined tomorrow. Additive manufacturing will replace machining for some parts, but the better way to think about additive is as a complementary process. One, because in metal, a part produced additively probably is still going to need finish machining. But also, two, because what additive really does is expand the range of designs that manufacturing is capable of producing. Additive manufacturing will be part of the future. How large a share of production additive manufacturing will account for is unknown. How quickly it will advance is unknown. But we will see additive manufacturing take its place as an established, accepted production option alongside molding, machining, and other processes. In the future, additive manufacturing will account for some significant share of the way that parts are made.
Okay, so that was a quick overview of additive manufacturing. By the way, here's a video up here in this corner. Hope you can see that from Markforged. They actually were at Temple University about, I don't know, a year ago maybe, and they were demonstrating their 3D printers. I also visited a manufacturing company in New Jersey that makes very small pumps. Well, they make a very large number of pumps, all different sizes. Some are very small, some are a little bit bigger. And they used 3D printing, for prototype purposes. So they would, if they're considering a new pump design and they want to see how the parts fit together, the parts are very small, they can 3D print them and they can see how they fit together. The 3D printed parts are not suitable for production. They don't have the strength that would be needed for a regular produced product, and the speed is also slower when you're talking about mass production. Okay, however, it does allow you to produce single parts that are very complex quickly. It's not good yet for mass production. Okay, so that's additive manufacturing. Do we have anything else on that? Oh yes, of course we do. So here are some scenarios. This guy 3D printed it's a gun, but it's not very functional. But he did it in his living room, so yeah, so the upcoming video, this man produced a 3D printed gun. It's not a very good gun, but we'll take a look. You can judge for yourself.
What Alfredo Orejuela has in his hands is something that wasn't supposed to be available. It's the parts for a 3D printed gun called the Liberator, one of the designs by Defense Distributed that was scheduled to be released online today, until a judge blocked them with an emergency order. For weeks, lawmakers and pundits have been freaking out about a sudden stockpile of 3D guns.
This is about weapons of war being made in people's living rooms.
Critics are calling it downloadable death. What could possibly go wrong?
But as Orejuela's living room makes clear, the battle over 3D printed firearms has been over for years.
Where'd you get the blueprints from? I thought they weren't available online.
They are available online, and we're in an era where people can get the latest Drake album or Infinity War at will. To think that you can control or stop the flow of data on the internet, it's absolutely ludicrous.
Orejuela runs a 3D printing company out of his home. He sells printing machines like the one here to schools and maker studios, some for as little as $250.
When you made a Liberator a few years ago, why'd you do it?
I wanted to see what was involved with it. I mean, I love the 3D printing industry. I want to know all I can about it. So I wanted to see for myself, is this a functionable piece?
All the magic that the ATF loves to regulate happens right in here.
The Liberator was the brainchild of Cody Wilson, a crypto-anarchist and gun enthusiast who released the designs online in 2013. He told me his mission is to show that guns can be manufactured by just about anyone, and to send up a giant middle finger to proponents of gun control. The blueprints for the gun were online for only a few days, before government officials ordered him to take them down. But that was enough. Tens of thousands of copies were downloaded. Thus began a 5-year legal saga that was supposed to end today, until that emergency restraining order.
Should we put one together?
Yeah. So these pieces were printed in the last 24 hours.
But Orejuela isn't particularly impressed with the quality of Wilson's guns. Neither are gun enthusiasts, which is probably why there aren't stockpiles of 3D guns.
This is the fully assembled or semi-assembled Liberator pistol.
I mean, it looks like a gun.
It's like a Nerf gun.
But I mean, it's designed to fire a bullet, in theory.
In theory, it is designed to fire a bullet very poorly. It is possible one day that an entry-level, so to speak, machine would be able to produce a functional firearm. Is that in the realm of possibility? Yes. But again, I don't see that as something new. People can make their own firearms. They can make untraceable firearms in a variety of other ways. And 3D printing is simply a new way of making guns. It's not a good way of making guns.
3D technology will dramatically improve in the future, but there are a ton of other ways to legally make an untraceable gun already.
Is everyone kind of freaking out about nothing?
I think they really are. I think it's really being overblown. And believe me, I'm all for gun control, but I do not believe that it is something that should bleed over into this industry right now. The average person is not innovating and creating firearms for various purposes. It's assuming everybody's a criminal.
Okay, so that was 3D printed guns. It seems to have progressed a little bit. Here's a video, we don't have to watch it today, but this video here, shooting a 3D printed gun. The gun that they shoot there looks like a real gun. From the video, it looks indistinguishable from a real semi-automatic pistol. It's based on a known design. So if you're interested in that, you can take a look at it. This gun is made out of metal. So I'm not sure if the technology has progressed in that time, or if that guy has I think he has a different printer that I think that cost about $1 million. So that's why he was able to print in metal. But here's an article about 3D printing drugs. I'm not going to read this whole thing. If you want to pause the video and look at it, you have the link. But the title kind of tells you what you need to know. You could soon be manufacturing your own drugs thanks to 3D printing. Okay, so they're painting a scenario here where instead of going to the pharmacy, you could make your own medicines at home. Okay, because researchers have tailored a 3D printer to synthesize pharmaceuticals and other chemicals from widely available starting compounds fed into a series of water bottle size reactors, allowing users to synthesize almost any compound anywhere in the world. Could allow. So it's probably coming. Okay, so I think that gives you some good material to work with. You can imagine if this technology progresses, and if everyone is capable, has the ability, or with just a small investment, if we have the ability to manufacture guns, manufacture drugs, I mean, what would that do to our system of laws against doing that if it was so easy? So that's something to think about. Okay, that's so much for 3D printing. Let's take a look at Mars. We're going to watch this first video, which I have actually not watched in its entirety yet, so we'll watch it together. This second one here, you're free to watch. I've seen it a bunch of times. It's by a man named I think Steven Stepanek, I believe is his name, and he talks about the effort, especially SpaceX, to go to Mars. I'll let you look at that on your own. And then this video, if you click on this one, it starts in the middle of one of Elon Musk's presentations where he's talking about the plan to take people to Mars. So let's watch the first one. Come on.
As we overcome the pandemic, won't we have a better chance of bringing clean water to the world's megacities when we work together? At SABIC, we believe the chemistry between people.
NASA just launched its Mars rover Perseverance, perched atop an Atlas V rocket, to lead one of the most ambitious and sophisticated Mars missions in history.
As the countdown to Mars continues, the perseverance of humanity launching the next generation of robotic explorers to the Red Planet.
But NASA wasn't alone. In the past 2 weeks, space agencies from China and the United Arab Emirates also launched missions to Mars. These spacecraft will travel over 400 million kilometers before all reaching their destination around February 2021. But in the past 13 years, only 7 rockets sent missions to the Red Planet. So why are so many attempts to reach Mars all happening right now? Space agencies see the Red Planet as a key to answering one of life's biggest questions. Are we alone?
The chemical signatures, the presence of past water, the sedimentation, everything about that planet is telling us, come and look for life here.
With cheaper, easier access to rockets and spacecraft technologies, and as more countries develop their technological prowess, deep space missions are increasing in numbers. Not to mention, getting to Mars is kind of a flex.
Becoming part of this new space race, as it were, is to show that you can launch really ambitious missions. That gives you all the pieces you need to do much simpler things, like put a bunch of satellites in low Earth orbit. If you can get to Mars, you can kind of do anything.
But why are they all going to Mars now? Well, it comes down to planet alignment, payloads, and orbital constraints. Spacecraft are heavy, but need to travel fast. Very, very fast. And they take a lot of effort to just get off the ground. So it's important to maximize efficiency and reduce weight or payload where you can. Faster, shorter trajectories or flight paths that use minimum fuel are critical for deep space exploration. You can send up heavier flights for lower costs. But Mars and Earth orbit the Sun at different distances and speeds, so they aren't always aligned. At the farthest point of their orbits, Mars and Earth are 401 million kilometers away from each other. And if you try to go then, you're gonna spend a long time traveling through space. But at their closest, the two planets can be less than 60 million kilometers apart.
Every 2 years, the planets in their orbits kind of get really close together, and that shortens the distance dramatically by 100 million miles or more to getting to the Red Planet.
And that's where we're at in this current launch window, from mid-July to mid-August.
Waiting for that planetary alignment gives you a huge advantage in terms of speed, allows you to send bigger spacecraft that can do more.
Thanks to the planet's different orbits, this window to launch lasts for about a month, and it only comes around every 26 months. So if NASA hadn't launched Perseverance by August 15th, it would have had to wait until 2022 to try again. But being close is only part of the launch strategy. When you send a spacecraft from Earth, it doesn't just go straight to Mars.
You launch your spacecraft, you get it sort of parked around the Earth, and it's circling the Earth at thousands of miles an hour, and then at just the right moment, you fire the spacecraft engines so that it gets on this path to Mars and just sort of coasts the rest of the time.
That path is known as the Hohmann transfer orbit. You can see that here, an elliptical path that fluidly connects Earth's orbit around the Sun to other planets' orbits. In this case, the planet in question is Mars.
Once you fire your engines, you're sort of like coasting down this river toward Mars because the gravitational pull of the planets and the velocity of your spacecraft is just going to like pull you right toward Mars.
The spacecraft will then meet Mars at the intersection of their orbits about 7 months down the line. So timing is key. You can think of this like a quarterback throwing a football to the receiver. You're throwing the ball to where the receiver will be, not where the receiver is currently running. If the timing is wrong by even an hour and the spacecraft lacks enough fuel to correct the mistake, then the spacecraft might miss Mars altogether and carry on in the Hohmann orbit alone. But if the timing is right, you get to Mars. Depending on the mission, you might slip into Mars' orbit before attempting to land on the surface, or you might go straight to the surface. If you've got a lander aboard that spacecraft, you deploy it, and then begins what many call the 7 minutes of terror. This is the riskiest part of the mission, the 7 minutes between the spacecraft hitting the Martian atmosphere at 19,500 kilometers per hour to softly landing.
So when you're plowing through the atmosphere to slow down the spacecraft, you're generating all the superheated plasma ahead of it. That creates a scramble of electromagnetic radiation, which blocks out your radio signals. You can't talk to your spacecraft, it can't send you data. So you have to wait until it's on the ground before you can really know what's happening.
Communications between Earth and Mars take at the very least 10 minutes round trip, so the landing must be perfectly automated. But this is exactly what NASA is aiming to do with Perseverance, which is skipping orbiting Mars and shooting straight for the surface. If the car-sized, nuclear-powered rover safely lands, it will use its 19 highly specialized cameras to help create groundbreaking 3D imagery.
So it can drill samples out of the soil and stash them on the rover for a future mission to come and collect them and send them back to Earth. These would be the first ever samples of Mars sent to Earth for humanity to look at.
A small helicopter is even hitching a ride on the rover's belly. The copter, called Ingenuity, will be used to test the first ever controlled flight on another planet. The goal of all of this is to learn about Mars' geology and climate, looking for livable environments and evidence of ancient microbial life on Mars. Yeah, you heard that right. Life on Mars. As for the other two missions,
as we know, Perseverance isn't alone on its journey to Mars. One is the United Arab Emirates HOPE probe. This is a satellite that's going to orbit Mars and try to crack some of the climatological mysteries of the red planet. You know, how do the seasons work? How do the gases move around? How do those levels of gases change over time?
And then there's China's more ambitious Tianwen-1 mission.
This is a spacecraft that has an orbiter, a lander, and a rover on it, and it's going to try to do basically all the things you can do on Mars.
If China succeeds, it would become the third country ever to land on the red planet. All three missions are major steps in space exploration and answering some of humanity's biggest questions. But we'll have to wait until February to find out if they all arrive safely.
Okay, so that's an overview of Mars missions that are upcoming or underway. As I said, I'm not going to watch these other two, but they are interesting videos, especially this one with Elon Musk talking about his plan. It's quite fascinating what SpaceX is doing. Basically, what he wants to do is he wants to launch a large number of his starships into orbit around Earth with empty fuel tanks, and then send a tanker back and forth to fill up the fuel tanks of the starships. I think he's calling them starships. And then the fleet of starships will depart at once. It could be as many as 1,000 of the starships that they're building will depart at once for Mars. Okay, so that's his plan. That's what he was talking about. So here's two final things. Super longevity and uploading to computers. So we probably won't watch all of these, but let's take a look at least the first one. This is from a man named Ray Kurzweil. He is a futurist and he likes to make predictions, and evidently he's made some rather accurate predictions in the past, so he's continuing to make more predictions. And he believes that we will upload to computers. We'll upload our consciousness. The contents of our brains can be digitized, I suppose, and uploaded to computers someday. And if that happens, we could live forever. That's what he's proposing. So sounds kind of crazy, but here we go.
People might, when they're 30 say, oh, I don't want to live past 95, but when they're 95, they actually want to live to 96. I want to live, I think, the same reason that I believe everyone else does. People say, oh, well, death gives meaning to life because it makes life short, and therefore it gives meaning to time. Actually, what gives meaning to life is the things we can do with it. Being creative, creating music, art, poetry, having relationships with other people, being loving. We'd all like to live indefinitely. In fact, research shows that people don't want to take their lives or end their lives unless they're suffering physical or emotional pain. And people think, oh, well, I don't want to live hundreds of years, because they think of themselves living as what we today think of as a 100-year-old living for a few hundred more years. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about being able to overcome disease and aging. And aging really is a disease-like process. It's going to be a very profound transformation over the next 10, 15 years. Health and medicine has become an information technology. Health and medicine didn't used to be an information technology. The Genome Project gave us the software of life, and biology is an information process, and we're now actually able to reprogram this outdated software. We're already smarter than we used to be because of the technology we carry around on our belts, but it's going to go inside our bodies and brains, keeping us healthy, making us smarter. We're going to be more creative, better able to express loving sentiments. That's what I think the future holds.
Okay, so that one wasn't so much about uploading to computers as it was about eternal life. I believe here's one about uploading to computers. Sorry about the volume.
Someday, we may have robots as smart as people. Artificial intelligence, AI. How could that happen? One route is that we'll just keep accumulating better software like we've been doing for 70 years. At past rates of progress, that may take centuries. Some say it'll happen a lot faster as we discover grand new powerful theories of intelligence. I'm skeptical. But a third scenario is what I'm going to talk about today. The idea is to port the software from the human brain. To do this, we're going to need 3 technologies to be good enough, and none of them are there yet. First, we're going to need lots of cheap, fast, parallel computers. Second, we're going to need to scan individual human brains in fine spatial and chemical detail to see exactly what cells are where, connected to what, or what type. And third, we're going to need computer models of how each kind of brain cell works, taking input signals, changing interval state, and sending output signals. If we have good enough models of all the kinds of brain cells and a good enough model of a brain, we can put it together to make a good enough model of an entire brain, and that model would have the same input-output behavior as the original. So if you talk to it, it might talk back. If you ask it to do things, it might do them. And if we could do that, everything would change. People have been talking about this idea for decades under the name of uploads. I'm going to call them M's. When they talk about it, they say, is this even possible? If you
I'm going to pause it there. This is what he's talking about, a computer model that emulates a particular human brain's cell interactions so well that it responds to input signals with almost the same output signals. So if we can build a model of a person's brain, a specific person's brain, if the technology, the 3 areas of technology he mentioned, if they advance far enough, we could build a model of a person's brain so that it will respond in a way that is almost the same as the actual person. That sounds really creepy, but if that would work, that person essentially could live forever in the computer. This has been discussed in various science fiction novels that I've read. It is kind of fascinating. I don't know, it sounds very far-fetched, but you know, if the Earth exists for another 1,000,000 years and we continue to advance our technology without destroying ourselves, who knows what's possible. So if you just keep that concept in mind, you can go from there. Here's the last one, autonomous vehicles. This is Elon Musk talking about robo-taxis. I'm kind of skipping through these videos because I don't want this video to take too long. So sorry if it seems accelerated. So here we go.
So going over just like Tesla master plan. Obviously, we've made a bunch of forward-looking statements, as they call it. What we're going to do this year is we're going to reach combined production of 10,000 a week between SX and 3. Next year, we'll expand the product line with Model Y and Semi, and we expect to have the first operating robo-taxis next year with no one in them. Not in all jurisdictions because we won't have regulatory approval everywhere, but I'm confident we will have at least regulatory approval somewhere literally next year. So any customer will be able to add or remove their car to the Tesla network. So we expect this to operate is sort of like a combination of maybe the Uber and Airbnb model, and Tesla would take 25 or 30% of the revenue. In places where there aren't enough people sharing their cars, we would just have dedicated Tesla vehicles. When you use the car, we'll show you our ride-sharing app. So you'll be able to summon the car from the parking lot, get in, and go for a drive. So you just take the same Tesla app.
Okay, so what he's talking about is this video is from April 2019, and he anticipated regulatory approval somewhere by quote-unquote next year, which would be this year. We're getting into late September, so if that is going to happen, I don't think it's happened yet. They only have a few months. But what he's talking about is a fleet of autonomous vehicles that drive people around. So if you own a Tesla, and I've heard him say this a few times, if you own a Tesla, you can assign it to the fleet when you're not using it yourself. So if there's a time when you know you're not going to need your car, using the app on your phone, you can assign it to the Tesla fleet. And then if somebody else in the area needs a ride, they can summon the car just like an Uber, except this version, there's no driver. The car's driving itself. The person who needs a ride can summon your car. The car will go pick the person up, take them to their destination, and then the car will come back to your driveway or wherever you're keeping the car. Sounds really cool. I don't think they're quite there yet. There's something called Level 5 autonomous vehicles, I think is what they call them, but it's definitely called Level 5. So far, nobody has been able to achieve Level 5. Level 5 means that a human in the car can essentially go to sleep and wake up when they're at their destination. There's no need for a person to actually monitor the car and intervene in an emergency. That technology is not there yet, but Tesla's working on it, and they think they're going to get there. Incidentally, they're using neural networks for that. We mentioned neural networks very briefly, and we'll look at those later this semester. I think that's all of our material. Yeah, so now if you could do the assignment. Where is it? Here's the assignment. Just choose one of these or choose more than one. One of the things I think that could be interesting is if you imagine two of these technologies, two or more working together. So for example, if we're able to edit the human genome and give people different characteristics, how might that change the colonization of Mars? Okay, how will 3D printing contribute to colonizing Mars, for example? There's different ways of looking at it. So I hope the assignment's clear. Your deliverable is something like this, and add it to the discussion that's here. Here's the discussion. I think I didn't make it live yet, so I'll publish it now. As I said, I will be at my computer during class from 11 to 12:20, so if you write me a message through Canvas or through Zoom, I'll be there. So good luck. And if we can also do in-class conferences today. If you finish the assignment, or if you want to do the assignment later, this assignment is due tonight at midnight. So if you can finish it up later, or if you want to talk to me today during class, whatever, you got some flexibility. Okay, that's all. So see you later.